I've carried this letter in my heart for 37 years. Today I finally sent it. You know that feeling when someone asks you about your biggest regret, and your mind immediately goes to that one moment? That one person? For me, it was always the same answer, though I never said it out loud. It was about my father, and the words I never got to say before he died when I was 28. My dad wasn't perfect. He worked 2 jobs to keep our family afloat, came home exhausted most nights, and showed love through actions rather than words. Growing up in the 1970s, that's just how fathers were. They provided, they protected, but they didn't always say, "I love you," or sit down for heart-to-heart conversations about feelings. I remember being 17, full of teenage fire and frustration. We'd gotten into one of those arguments that starts about curfew but somehow becomes about everything else. I was accepted to college across the country, and he didn't understand why I needed to go so far away when there was a perfectly good state school 30 minutes from home. "You're just running away," he said, his voice tired and strained. "You think the grass is always greener somewhere else." I shot back with all the venom a 17-year-old could muster. Maybe I am running away. Maybe I need to get away from this small-minded place and these small-minded people. The hurt that flashed across his face still haunts me. But I was too proud, too young, too convinced I was right to apologize. Instead, I left for college that fall with barely a goodbye. Over the next decade, our relationship existed in that awkward space between love and stubbornness. Phone calls every few weeks. Polite visits home for holidays. Both of us wanting to bridge that gap but neither knowing how to take the first step. He'd ask about my job, my apartment, whether I was eating enough. I'd give short answers and change the subject. We danced around the elephant in the room, that argument, that hurt, that wall we'd both built brick by brick. Then came the call. Heart attack. Sudden. The doctors did everything they could. I remember sitting in that sterile hospital room, holding his hand as machines beeped around us. He looked so small in that bed. Nothing like the giant of my childhood who could fix anything, lift anything, solve any problem. I kept thinking I'd have time. Time to say the things I should have said years ago. Time to tell him I was sorry. Time to tell him I understood now why he worked so hard, why he worried, why letting me go so far away had scared him. But time isn't guaranteed, is it? He never woke up. At his funeral, person after person came up to me with stories. How he'd helped them fix their car when they couldn't afford a mechanic. How he'd covered extra shifts so a younger coworker could attend his daughter's graduation. How he'd quietly paid for groceries for the elderly woman next door when her husband got sick. Mrs. Henderson from down the street grabbed my hands with her weathered ones and said, "Your father talked about you all the time. He was so proud. He kept newspaper clippings of every little accomplishment you shared, even when you thought he wasn't paying attention." That's when I learned he'd saved every letter I'd written from college, every Christmas card, every graduation announcement. My mother showed me the box after everyone left. At the bottom, underneath all my letters, was a draft of one he'd written to me but never sent. It was dated just 2 weeks before he died. "My dear daughter," it began. "I know I'm not good with words like you are, but I need you to know something. That fight we had before you left for college has bothered me every day since. Not because I was wrong about wanting you close. A father always wants his children close. But because I let my fear of losing you make you feel like you had to choose between your dreams and my love. You never had to choose. My love was never conditional on you staying small or staying put." I sobbed reading those words, sitting on my childhood bedroom floor surrounded by the remnants of his unexpressed feelings. The letter went on. He wrote about watching me grow into an independent, successful woman. About how proud he was that I'd had the courage to chase my dreams, even when it meant leaving everything familiar behind. About how he realized his small town had actually raised someone with a big heart and bigger aspirations, and that was something to celebrate, not contain. "I hope someday," his letter ended, "we'll find our way back to each other. I hope you'll forgive an old man for being more scared than supportive when you needed me most. I love you more than my limited words could ever express." For 37 years, I carried the weight of our unfinished conversation. I carried guilt, regret, and the crushing weight of words left unsaid. I became a mother myself, and with every milestone my children reached, I thought about how my father must have felt watching me grow up and grow away. Last month, on what would have been his 85th birthday, I finally did something I should have done decades ago. I wrote him a letter. I told him about my life, my children, my struggles and triumphs. I told him I understood now why he worried, why he wanted to keep me close, why my leaving felt like rejection when all I'd meant was growth. I told him I was sorry. Sorry for the harsh words. Sorry for the years of distance. Sorry for letting pride keep us from truly knowing each other as adults. I told him about the man I married, how he reminds me of Dad in all the best ways. I told him about his grandchildren, how they have his stubborn streak and his gentle heart. But most importantly, I told him I finally understood what he was trying to teach me all along. That love isn't about holding on tight. It's about having the courage to let go and trust that the foundation you've built is strong enough to bring your loved ones home, even if home looks different than you imagined. I folded that letter carefully and took it to his grave. I read it out loud through tears, feeling foolish and free all at once. Then I buried it next to his headstone, finally delivering the words I'd been carrying all these years. The weight I'd carried for nearly 4 decades lifted that day. Not because I believe he heard me, though part of me hopes he did, but because I finally said what needed to be said. I finally chose love over pride, connection over being right. If you're carrying a letter in your heart, if there are words you need to say to someone, whether they're still here or not, don't wait. Don't let pride or fear or the assumption that you'll have more time keep you from speaking your truth. Write the letter. Make the call. Have the conversation. Because the heaviest thing we carry isn't regret for the things we did wrong. It's regret for the love we never expressed, the forgiveness we never offered, the connections we never made because we were waiting for the perfect moment that never came. Today I'm free. Today the letter has finally been sent.